Salutations Rangers, General Burley 101 here, back at you again with some more lore. And in today's video we're going to be talking about something rather interesting. We're going to be mentioning a fan favorite of the community and arguably the greatest man of the Imperium, and maybe even all of 40k. That being Commissar Ciaphas Cain, the hero of the Imperium. But whereas I've already done a video covering him in detail, click over here, very good, promise, quality video. I'm going to be asking something a bit more heretical, one might say. People love Cain, both in-universe and out-of-universe. But is Commissar Ciaphas Cain truly good for Warhammer 40k as a setting? Or could he have been the worst thing that could ever happen to this IP? We're going to find that out today and a whole lot more. Before we begin talking about why is Cain, we must first find out what is Cain. Commissar Ciaphas Cain is a Lord Commissar of the Imperial Guard, particularly with the 597th Regiment of the Valhallan Ice Warriors, which was formed in the year 931, after two regiments that were both at half strength were combined into a full strength, a common thing that happens with the Guard. Commissar Ciaphas Cain would be joined by an ensemble of characters, including his personal assistant, Jurgen, who is famous with his melter gun, his lover, Amberly Vale, who also happens to be a Lady Inquisitor, and the colonel of the regiment, Regina Caiston. Cain and his adventures are covered in a series of Black Library books, however they are also documented in-universe as his memoirs, which are edited and narrated by Miss Amberly Vale. By the way, if anyone new who's wondering why you hear people call him Ciaphas Cain, there was a chap by the name of Alpha Busa who created a short regarding Ciaphas Cain. It was a skit, it was rather funny, and in so, his troops sang him a song, which went as follows. Ciaphas Cain, the hero of the Imperium. The community and the fandom at large saw that, latched onto it like a baby sloth clutching to its mama, and ran with it ever since. The whole premise though of Cain is that he is a coward, but to everyone else, he is the most vaunted hero, the most greatest man of men. And whereas Cain, the coward, would simply like to slink away and do absolutely nothing, since he is such an amazing figure, the Guard, and thus the Imperium, keep on giving him more and more better and more dangerous tasks to do. However, that is according to Cain. In reality, when you look at it, while his first ever engagement, that being against the Tyranids, he did happen to flee away in terror, which accidentally resulted in them luring into the bombardment of an artillery corps. Ever since then, Cain has acted with nothing but utmost bravery. In fact, he is very human, and while he is scared, he's never a coward. Cain has a great deal of imposter syndrome. He believes that he's a fake, a fraud, and a detriment to everything that the Imperial Guard should be. Yet to everyone around him, he is an amazing man. And that plays into a big crux of the story. Cain and his supposed cowardice is actually just something he cooked up in his head, because he thinks himself unworthy. Whereas to everyone else can clearly say, he is one of the greatest heroes of the Imperium. And he has received one of the very few honors of the Imperial Guard, to actually retire to a world, all on his own as a governor with Amberly Vale. However, he was recalled during the 13th Black Crusade, and ever since then his fate remains unknown. Alright, listen up, this is where the concrete lore ends. Everything from here on out is me being all philosophical, looking into theories and questions, putting two and two together to see do they equal four, or goddammit do they equal fish, and is that fish good, or is it shit? Is it good fish, or is it shit fish? Alright, good? Grand. Fantastic. If you ask a lot of people what is their favorite book, you're gonna get a couple answers. The Night Lord's Omnibus is pretty common, Infinite and the Vine is always a good choice, Betrayer for one is a lot of people's favorite, The First Heretic is also pretty good, but more often than not, the vast majority of them are going to be the Ciaphas Cain series. And regardless of what anyone's favorite book may be, everybody loves the Ciaphas Cain series. Why? Because quite simply, Cain is just like the God, a regular man in a world filled with irregular things. He is nothing but a normal man forced to fight monstrous entities, demons, devils, aliens, and everything in between. And somehow, by the skin of his teeth, he emerges unscathed. Or so that's how it's portrayed. As I've mentioned, there is a big difference between what Cain thinks of himself and what the Imperium thinks of himself. But what I really want to talk about today is that a good thing? Not the fact that there's difference between how they see each other, that is very good, but is the whole idea of a character like Cain good for Warhammer? Or did it accidentally ruin Warhammer? You see, Cain is human. He is purely human. Now granted, he has some rejuvenation treatments, maybe a few stims here and there, and he's buff as fuck, he definitely has a few roids. But for all intents and purposes, he is relatively baseline human. Yet when we look at everything that he's done, his feats are insane. He has dueled Swarmlords and Chaos Space Marines and survived. He's held their own. And this is not a case of, oh, the writer didn't understand what a Swarmlord or a Chaos Marine is. This is a consistent element that Cain has, so much so that when he spars with a loyalist Space Marine, the Space Marine is legitimately shooketh wondering how this mortal dude can keep up with him. He has defeated Orc Wars, Tyranid fleets, Gene Stealer cults, Chaos Space Marine warbands, Drukhari. Every single foe that the Imperium has fought, Cain has fought them and he has bested them. He has even fought against the Necrons and won out against them, although that was his most scarring experience according to him. So now we have this human character, who is human in pretty much every single aspect, and yet he's able to tear through entities that should kill him easily. Now, commissars are no joke, but when you got even Space Marines being like, hold up, what the hell is up with him? Well then, I think it's a cause for concern. In fact, this has caused many people to speculate that Cain is not just a normal human. Some have speculated that he is blessed by the Emperor, if not directly in forms of Imperial Saint, maybe he has the Emperor's luck. Maybe the Emperor is watching over him, making sure that he's able to dodge at the right moment, strike at the right spot, just do exactly what he needs to do, when he needs to do it. Other, even wilder theories state that this is all a ploy of Tzeentch somehow, that Tzeentch himself is governing and moving and machinations, so much so that Cain always gets out on top because it's part of his grander scheme of greater plans. Even wilder theories abound that Tzeentch and the Emperor are fighting over Cain for some reason. Some people believe that Cain could be a special breed of humanity, i.e. a perfect human, part of the 0.001% that the Emperor was looking for. And there are plenty more that make more sense and that make even less sense somehow. But that's the thing, it's never really even hinted at that Cain has anything like that. It's all purely fan theory and speculation. To us, he is a normal commissar, he is just really good at what he does. And that leads me to the question, did he ruin Warhammer? Warhammer has a big issue with power scaling. That's mainly because there's about 50 billion writers that come in and out of the door, and none of them can agree onto one thing other than a Space Marine is a Space Marine. What that means? God almighty only knows. A lot of my YouTuber friends and I have sat around and discussed that what Warhammer needs is a Warhammer Bible, essentially, for lack of a better word. Essentially, each faction has a big old set of rules. It tells you what a Space Marine can and can't do, what they can and can't lift, what can and can't kill them, etc. You tell them what elders are, what a Psychic Elder's limits are, and then from there everyone knows. Will that ever happen? Probably not. But I think y'all now see where I'm going with this. Cain is supposed to be a human being. A regular normal human. A good human, yeah, but just a human. Yet, we're supposed to think and believe that he can duel Space Marines, he can duel multiple Swarm Lords, he can duel the greatest entities that even Space Marines would struggle against, and win? Not just win, but convincingly win. And every single time that Cain has fought, it's never been a half victory. He's always done exactly what he needs to do, or he's always survived, and it's always been a great victory for the Imperium. Is the character of Ciaphas Cain, does his very existence ruin Warhammer by taking whatever power balance, whatever power scaling, whatever structure we have left, and simply throwing it away? Is GW asking us to do too much by simply waving the hand and be like, oh, it's okay, don't think about it. Don't think about how this mortal man can outdo a cornate berserker. Don't think about how this mortal man can stand toe-to-toe with a Swarm Lord more than 3 times his size. Don't think about how this mortal man can uncover a Gene Stealer cult and eradicate it. Don't think how this mortal man can broker a peace treaty with the Tau. Don't think about how this mortal man can survive entering the Webway and combating Dark Eldar. Don't worry about how this mortal man can fight against the Necron and only come out slightly scarred. Don't do all that. Just hand wave it away. You see, in Warhammer, 2 people can talk about the same topic, but have wildly different opinions. That's because there is partly no consistency with Warhammer. Or rather, there is no concrete consistency. We can have 99 examples of a Space Marine liking steak, but there will be 1 example of a Space Marine liking fish. And that's okay, that makes sense, right? You're supposed to have that. Diversity a little bit. But in those 99 examples of that Space Marine having steak, some of the steak is raw, some of the steak is actually ground beef, some of the steak is burnt to a crisp, some of the steak is literally charcoal, and other steak is smothered in ketchup. There is no true concrete consistency in Warhammer, and for a while that was its greatest strength. But with the addition of Cain, did GW overreach too far? Did they finally break any sense of scaling? And is Warhammer 40k whatever the writer needs it to be when he needs it to be? Is Warhammer as a setting lost because of this? Now, I'm not saying that Cain himself did this on his own, but was he the straw that broke the camel's back? Because if a normal human like Ciaphas Cain can duel a Chaos Space Marine, what is so special about him that there aren't more? If someone else releases a story about how, yes, an Imperial Guard Commissar dueled the Chaos Space Marine and won, well, people will be like, oh, Cain did it, and what if another one came out? People will be like, oh, those 2 can do it. Then eventually, you have a group of people thinking that it's quite possible and quite normal for a Lord Commissar to be the equal of a Chaos-Corn berserker, because if you tell a lie big enough and often enough, people will think it's true. I can't quote who said that, because if I did, YouTube would get rather upset. So, by introducing this character who has won against every single faction, and the only credible thing we can say about Cain is that, oh, he's just lucky. He may be skilled, but ultimately all of it comes down to luck, which is what he himself thinks. Did GW permanently ruin their setting? Did they cripple it by now making sure that, well, everything is nothing, and nothing is everything? Did Commissar Ciaphas Cain ruin Warhammer 40k? Normally, this is the part where I say, I don't know, but in this case I most definitely do know, and the answer is no. No, he did not. Whilst all of those concerns are valid, and it's a fair point, looking into it you see that it's not as grim as it may seem, or as grim-dark, one might even say. Yes, while it's true that Cain does a lot of shit that a normal human being should not be able to do, he does a lot of things that make absolutely no sense, and it's wild how this man is still alive. If you read the books, if you read how Cain does them, there is a method to the man's madness. When he's fighting the Chaos Berserker, he's able to hold his own, and some people will point and say, okay, that's too much in of itself, and I'll talk about that a little later. But he holds off the Chaos Berserker until he lures him into a trap, which just so happens to be Jurgen with a melter square in his face. When he fights those Swarm Lords, he's blocking, he's parrying, he gets a good hit in, but he's just waiting for other people to arrive. Again, Jurgen with a melter, or a very angry Chimera. But then people will still say, okay, but look, you shouldn't be able to do this to begin with. Like, how many other times have we seen Commissars or Guardsmen or even Space Marines die to lesser things? And here's what I really want to point out. GW doesn't make this clear enough, and maybe that's the point, but Cain is not a normal man. I'm not talking about him being blessed by the Emperor or any 0.1% nonsense, nothing of that, right? What I'm talking about is that Cain is a good man in Warhammer. I talked about this in my Commissar Ciaphas Cain video. All he wants to do is to do his duty. While the first time, yes, he was scared and he ran away, that's because he was human. He felt fear. He saw a horde of giant mutated bug aliens charging him. Of course he would run. But because of the Imperium of Man and how sadistic and twisted it is, fear is evil in any form, even if it's rational fear. There's a quote I want to bring up, and it goes as follows. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite of it. And that quote fits Cain to a T. Cain is a good man, and he's not a fighter. He doesn't want to fight, he doesn't care for glory. He just wants to sit with his tea and live his life. But when he sees people in danger, when he sees the Imperium in danger, he is forced to act. And because of that one incident, he thinks he's not good enough. And he constantly thinks that he's not good enough to do what he needs to do. But that's a lie. People who have imposter syndrome are the people who genuinely want to do good. And that's why they think that they're never enough. We think that no matter what we do, no matter how much we do, it's never enough because someone will always suffer. And because of that, Cain has drilled meticulously. He is an amazing commander. He is an excellent duelist. He is buff as all hell, physically trained, mentally trained, spiritually fortified. Why? Because he knows that he's going to be facing all of these evils, and he still chooses to fight on. So he trains in every aspect. When we look back into our own history, there are many great men who are simply just built different, for lack of a better term. They are different. True great men, true giants of history. Like you think about Alexander the Great, one of the few men in history to never have lost a battle. Now, he didn't do all of it on his own, but neither did Cain, and he definitely had special talent built into him. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman in all of Japanese history, never once did he ever see his blood spilt until he accidentally cut himself carving wood. A warrior without equal. He was still a normal mortal man, he was just gifted and trained really well. Nelson Mandela, a favorite of my own home, the man was many things. He was able to go from someone who committed arson and was tried by the state for terrorist attacks to the father of a brand new nation. He was simply just different. In Warhammer, we have this idea. A Space Marine cannot be killed by anything other than a Space Marine. And if something less than a Space Marine like a Guardsman tries to kill a Space Marine, we need to figure out why. We have to have a justified, logical reason why. Because if he steps out of bounds even slightly, it's badly written and GW authors are once again screwing up their own lore. And granted, we didn't get like that overnight. GW committed a cardinal of sins for us to become like that. But we do often overdo it. And in overdoing it, we often forget the beauty and the power that is simply an ordinary mortal man with extraordinary gifts. Because Cain is a normal human, but that doesn't mean he's a normal man. Cain is an extraordinary man. He is a man once in a generation seen. He is someone different. He is a true mighty man of humanity. He is one of the great leaders and rulers that we have in our world. He is the equivalent of that. There are so many great men who we read about what they did and we think that's impossible, yet it happened. We don't judge them and what they did because we live in the normal world. But then, why are we judging Cain for doing crazy, extraordinary, brave, magnificent things in Warhammer 40k? It doesn't make sense for a man to wrestle a bear and win, yet we have accounts of actual human beings doing that. So why are we all of a sudden concerned when Cain can duel a Swarmlord and win? Not everyone can duel a Swarmlord and win. Not every Commissar can, but Cain can. Why? Because he's a great man. A lot of Warhammer 40k fans are very logical. They like to pick apart things and make sure that A plus B equals C, that 2 plus 2 equals 4, not fish. But you gotta understand, there are people who have lived throughout history where 2 plus 2 equals fish, and do you know what they did? They took that fish, and they ate it, because they were happy they got a fish. They didn't care about anything else. They didn't care that it didn't make any sense. They didn't care about that. They had something to do and they did it. They didn't overthink it. And if there's one thing that Warhammer 40k fans are guilty of, it's overthinking things and overanalyzing things. Guilty as charged. To say that Ciaphas Cain ruins Warhammer 40k because of what he does can only be said by someone who missed the point. Ciaphas Cain is a great man. He's not a space marine, he's not a custodes, he's not an eldar, he's nothing like that, he's just a great man. There are lesser men who have become space marines, and there are even great men who become space marines, and those great space marines shine through. Humanity, regardless of who or what we are, when we are, whatever setting, there will be men who are lesser than us, there will be men who are greater than us, regardless of what armor they wear, what enhancements they are given. A great man will always beat a lesser man, because a great man has will. Every single great man who's ever existed has a strong will, whether that be to conquer, to protect his family, or to unite a nation. Cain's will is that he wants to live a good life, but he cannot ignore the pleas of those around him. He cannot simply ignore people being hurt, people in trouble, people in danger. Regardless of how much he may tell himself that he can, he is a good man. A good man in a universe where good men die. But Cain is not just a good man, he is a great man. And because of that, Ciaphas Cain has thrived where many others have failed. Commissar Ciaphas Cain is the best thing to happen to Warhammer, because it reminds us Warhammer fans who are often so stuck in the mud and grime of the grim darkness of the 40,000th millennium that we often forget that at the end of the day, a human being is a human being, and human beings can give birth to many different kind of men. But when a good man, who is also a great man, decrees that he will do what he needs to do, nothing, not a Swarmlord, not a Chaos Space Marine, not a Dark Elder Archon, nothing will stop him from doing what he needs to do. Because beware the will of man. For human beings will give everything if they want to see something done. And what Commissar Ciaphas Cain wants is to simply relax with everybody and drink his bloody Tanner tea. So to answer the question, did Commissar Ciaphas Cain ruin Warhammer 40k? No. No, he did not. If anything, Commissar Ciaphas Cain made Warhammer 40k better, because it reminded us that it's not only Astartes who can be great men, it's not only Primarchs or Custodes. Normal humans can also be great, great men. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for watching. Let me know what you think of this video down below. Did you ever think that Cain ruined Warhammer, or was it something that never crossed your mind? And do you agree with me that Warhammer 40k fans tend to be a little bit too analytic at times? But I want to hear what you guys have to say down below. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, helps me a bunch out in the algo, so please do that. I want to say a massive thank you to you for watching, and even bigger thank you to my members. Shout out to my Lieutenant tier members, Mr. Eddie V3 and Miss Matura of the Void, my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak and Mr. Andy McGee, and shout out to my private tier members, Mr. Thomas Muslons and Mr. Ivan_SVW. Thank you all so much for doing this. YouTube is uncertain, it's uneasy, but having that steady stream makes the world to me, and I love each and every one of you. But remember, just always be free, and you simply just watching, liking, commenting, doing all that means the absolute world, and it helps me out more than you will ever know. So don't worry, this will always be free, and whether you're a member or not, I will always love you. Mwah! Yes, I will. But ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Bradley 101. You've been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Thank you all so very much for watching this video. Make sure to stay honorable out there, boys and girls. And I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, Rangers. I wonder what bad comment I'll get today. Maybe someone talking about how it doesn't matter if he's a great man, he still shouldn't be able to do that. Not understanding that great men are great because they're better than ordinary men. Like you and me, fuckboy.